back to Traffic Time with Jaime. My name is Jaime. I appreciate you guys stopping by. This episode is a little bit more special. Not only is it the first request on a follow-up video, but I was able to speak to a fellow soldier that I deploy with to help me out with some of these answers. This goes out to my sister and my beautiful niece. Thank you very much for inquiring and helping create another episode, some more content for me to speak on. This is a topic that I've kind of talked to people about. I've thought about it myself, especially with my wife wanting to pursue this career. It will potentially help out a lot of young women in our circle, friends and family, and everybody you might know. With that being said, the topic is women in the military. So on one of my episodes, I spoke on things to think about if you want to enlist. So I give my personal experiences, what I went through, what I didn't think about, what people should think about. But again, it's all my point of view, being a male adult. Not to say the military was easy for me, but it wasn't the hardest thing I've gone through. And I don't know, I can't speak to it to say that it was because I was a male, maybe because I was athletic. There's so many factors that play into that that are different for women. So with that being said, we're going to dive right into the first couple questions. She is not here with me right now. Obviously, I am stuck in traffic, and I have pre-screened these questions and answers to be able to have something to speak on this drive this afternoon. So the first question, what motivated you to join the Army, and how did your journey begin? It didn't take much to motivate me to join the Army, she states. I grew up in a poor, low-income family and neighborhood where opportunities were limited and hardship was the norm. Surrounded by these circumstances, I knew early on that I wanted more out of life. It would have been easy to follow the path that many around me took, but I made a conscious decision to break away and pursue something better. Joining the Army was my way of taking control of my future and striving for a life beyond what I always know. So that is a great point of view, and this can apply to all genders, all over the world, right? In my situation, I also wanted to take control of my future. My future was uncertain. My parents weren't able to support me in areas that I needed to financially. Unfortunately, I didn't have a big circle of people, friends or family, to be able to support me much in anything as far as being able to guide me on how to do those next steps. So I chose the path that would help me straighten that and clear up some of my future choices. Next question says, can you describe a defining moment in your military career that had a lasting impact on you? She states, one defining moment in my military career that I had a lasting impact on me was during my employment. The next question, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced as a woman in the military, and how did you overcome them? So great question, and she has a great answer. So equality was one of the biggest challenges I faced as a woman in the military. I constantly felt like I had to prove myself physically, mentally, and professionally. It often seemed like I had to work twice as hard as the person next to me just to earn the same level of respect, which unfortunately, speaking to my wife on this recently, we speak on it every couple of years, women in the workforce have to go through this, and based on her answer, being in the military is no exception. So a lot of people feel, or I should say a lot of women feel, that if I join the military, I'll earn that respect and I'll be looked at, or I'll get the good opportunities. But as you can see, going through it, you still are in the same place. So that's another challenge that you should consider if you're willing to go through, put yourself through that situation. The rest of the answer continues. Another significant challenge was the lack of female mentors. In a male-dominated environment, having mentorship from a woman in leadership role can make a meaningful difference. Female leaders not only serve as role models, but also provide guidance and support that's rooted in shared experience. Unfortunately, those opportunities were few and far between during my time, which made navigating certain situations more difficult. Despite these challenges, I stayed focused, remained resilient, and did my best to be the example and supported that I wished I had. So, tough things to go through, especially if you don't have that support line. I know things have changed immensely since the time I was in boot camp. I know there are ways to reach out and get more support during and throughout your boot camp and your training, your deployments. So if you have friends or family, for example, my niece, she could always call on her parents. She could reach out to me. There's always going to be someone for her if she chose this path. But unfortunately, there are individuals that don't have that same support, and it can be a challenging feat to go through. But I would say if you have the physical, emotional, and mental capacity to do so, it is a great experience to go through. Next question. What challenges were presented being a young black woman in the military, if any? Answer. As a young black woman in the military, I was presented with many different challenges. I experienced inequality that often made me question whether I had made the right decision by joining. At times, I felt a lack of respect that left me with an overwhelming sense that I had to work twice as hard just to be seen and valued on the same level as others. These experiences were difficult, but they also fueled my determination. I chose to rise above the obstacles by staying focused, proving myself through my actions, and refusing to let others define my worth. Those challenges ultimately shaped me into a stronger, more resilient leader. Next question, how did you experience, excuse me. Next question, how did your experiences in the Army shape your leadership style or work ethic? The Army helped shape my leadership skills by placing me in situations that required confident decision-making, accountability, and the ability to remain composed under pressure. I learned that leadership isn't just about holding a position or authority. It's about being able to listen as much as you give direction. True leadership is rooted in earning trust, setting an example, and empowering others to succeed. The Army shaped my work ethic by teaching me the value of teamwork and leading by example. I learned early on effective leadership means working alongside your colleagues and not above them. Building strong partnerships and contributing equally to the mission was a key lesson for me. The Army instilled in me a mindset of working hard, not just for personal success, but because others are counting on you to do your part. The foundation has carried over into my civilian career, where I now serve in a leadership role. The standards and habits I developed in the Army continue to guide my performance and work ethic every day. Next question, reads, "Can you share an example of a time you had to make a difficult decision under pressure, and how did you handle it?" Her answer: "Upon returning from my deployment in 2009, I encountered a fellow female soldier in my platoon who was going through significant personal struggles. It was clear to me that the higher leadership didn't take the time to understand her situation. They seemed more focused on pointing out her mistakes than offering support, which made things worse for her. As a newly promoted sergeant, I was directed to write her up. The request didn't sit right with me. I knew that refusing to follow orders could result in disciplinary action for subordination. But instead of following through without question, I made a difficult choice to put myself on the line and offer her help instead. Being in a leadership role can sometimes blind people to the human side of the responsibility. Leadership isn't just about discipline, it's about compassion, understanding, and lifting others up when they need it the most. So that's what I did. I stepped in as a mentor, and over time, I watched her grow into an incredible person." Now, one of the final questions that was asked was, what advice would you have for young women trying to join the military? And she stated that you should have an open mind, be resilient, and know your worth. And I think that is some great advice. That goes along pretty much for anybody joining the military. But for young women, especially a woman of color in the minority group, knowing that you are enough and you are worth just the same as your peers next to you, whether they're male or female, should allow you to keep focused on your training and the mission at hand. I'm sure it can be difficult. Again, I'm not a female and I didn't experience this, but seeing how other males acted towards female soldiers, I can tell you that not every person accepts that equality. Some people still push away from it so bad that it can make it more difficult and add more pressure to those female soldiers. If each individual focused on their mission and their training and at the same time supported each other, all it would be based on would be a physical condition, and that is easier to get through than emotional and mental strain when you're having to deal with a lot of other issues that typically you wouldn't have to deal with. Some of the things that I saw that wasn't really covered in the interview questions were situations where females had to accomplish certain tasks that males already knew they would have difficulties in, and instead of supporting and motivating and encouraging them to make it and to continue and to succeed, they would cheer the opposite way. They would cheer on their failure as a chance of saying, basically, we knew that you couldn't make it. You're proving it by not making it. You're not succeeding. I think you should change your mind. And that is a horrible thing to go through for anyone, especially if you already made that choice to enlist, and you might have felt like this is the last thing, this is the only thing I have, and now I'm being ridiculed or made fun of, or not encouraged. That could be the most debilitating thing that an individual can go through. So again, if you're a young woman or a young female that's trying to figure out what they want to do, maybe the military is something that you want to experience. You're not forced into it. You have other choices. that to me is the best way to enlist when you have other options, because now you know mentally you are taking on that role willingly. You weren't forced into it by life. So as you continue your career, you know how to navigate and move through it. You can overcome situations without having to have the stressor of, once I can't get out, because once I get out, I won't have anywhere to turn. In this situation, I would tell my family members, especially those that I talk to and can connect with, is there's always support. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to your parents. You can definitely make it through a small contract. If it is a 20-year career you're searching for, that would involve a little bit more commitment, more research, because you definitely want to get into a career that you're going to enjoy. It's not like a job that you can just quit and apply somewhere else. In the military, you're going to have to stick out whatever contract you signed. And if you are trying to still stay in the military but then just move career, you have to go through the retraining process. It could take a year, 2 years to go through that. And at that point, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be in the same location. You might have to be willing to move. It could be, a few hours away. It could be in the same base. It might have to be out of state, depending on what role you currently have and what role you're going to take on. The biggest thing that I would say out of all this is to keep in mind that once you enlist, once you've signed away stating that you're going to give your body to the U.S. government, there's a high probability that you will get deployed. Whether it be a location where there's a war going on, whether it be a location where it's really easy and all you're doing is guarding a post. It could be somewhere you never see action, nobody's ever seen action or heard of it in that location. It could be one of the hottest places in the world as far as the type of conflict that's going on. So you have to be mentally prepared and ready to do that when you're going to enlist. Again, there are individuals like my fellow soldier that felt like that was the only option where she could have taken control and created a life for herself, and she has done that very well. There are other individuals, again, that just do it because of tradition. They have family members that have done it. They're well off. They have money. They have education, but they use their education and their current status to help them get ahead further in the military, so that they don't have to do all the grunt work. They do have more options and better jobs with education included in those careers. So bottom line is research, just like you would any career in any school. If it is for you, go for it. If you still have doubts, reach out to anybody you can. For any of those that are watching videos, feel free to comment, ask questions. I can always answer as much as I can from my personal experience. I can also reach out again to other fellow soldiers that might be able to answer some of those questions. I still have connections with people in the service right now, younger and older, so I can try to give you as much support, as much feedback as I can. Hopefully this was useful for everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time. Be safe.